Hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. Today in today's video we're going to learn how to make this blazer top. If that is what you want to learn how to make for yourself, then keep watching this video till the very end as I give detailed explanation on how I came about this dress. The AI is my inspiration, and of course the one I'm putting on is the one I recreated. So let's head straight to it. You'll be needing your basic bodies in full like this. Okay, I have my basic dart, which is my side bust dart and my waist dart. So I labeled one side long and the other side short. Okay, as you can see from the dress, we have the longer side and the shorter side. So from the center, I'm going to be separating this pattern into two, which is the long and the short. We're going to be separating them. At this point, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do want to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified whenever I post lovely tutorials like this. Thank you. So when I've separated them, I'm going to be putting one side, which is actually the long. Just going to be setting the longer side. You can decide to set the shorter side, but be sure you follow the tutorial. I've set the long part aside. We're going to be working on the short part of it. So I added 1 inch, which is actually for the button allowance of the blazer, okay, to the center front. That was the first thing I did. Then the next thing we're going to do is on your waistline, you're going to be measuring 3.5 inches. That is how long I want the short side to be. I went ahead to measure 3.5 inches from the waistline. You're going to be taking that measurement all the way across the side, all the way like so, 3.5 inches from the waistline downwards. I'll go ahead to use my ruler to join them together. Please ignore the background noise. Then I'm going ahead to use my scissors and cut out that particular measurement. So the lower part of it, we do not need it. We're going to be discarding it because the upper part of it is actually the size of a short part of this blazer. The next thing I'm going to do, of course, is to draw in my lapel design. Please ignore that part of the lapel design that I drew in. It was a mistake. Okay, so I had to leave that. Then my button is going to be starting from my waistline. I kind of made that indication to know my button is going to be starting from there. And 3 inches upwards from there is my next button. Okay, so this is optional, but make sure you have a button at the waistline to help you shaping the waist, all right? So at this point, I'm going to be cutting out that 1 inch button allowance up until the waist. I'm going to be cutting it out or taking it out up until the waist. And this is what it should look like. Remember, it's pattern drafting. You can decide to switch up things. You can decide to work exactly with what I'm doing. So you just pay attention to the important details and then you work with it. So now I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches from this point like so. Then on the side, I'm going ahead to mark, was it 2 inches I marked or 2.5 inches? I can't really remember, but either 2 inches or 2.5 inches. That was what I marked. Then on the 1.5 inch mark, I'm going to be connecting it to this point like so. We're going to be connecting it with a slight curve to this point like so. Then having done that with my ruler, I'm going to be ruling a straight line from this point to the 1.5 inch point like so. And we have that shape for the lower part of it, so I'm going to be cutting it out. This is what it looks like. Can you see? This is what it looks like. You can decide to switch yours or do something else. Just whatever is up to you, you can do it. But this is what mine looks like. Now, adding fresh pattern paper to the up part, I told you to ignore that lapel design or whatever design I did. That was a mistake. So what you're supposed to do now is to add fresh pattern paper to this part. And I'm going to be marking 1 inch in front of my neckline, which is going to be serving as my roll line. If you know where we're drafting the jacket, your lapel, whatever, your shawl collar, you need the roll line. So that 1 inch is for my roll line. Now you're going to be extending the roll line to where you want your lapel to stop. and your button will start. So wherever the lapel is going to stop, you're going to place your ruler there, make sure it's touching the 1 inch, and then you rule the line across. And this is what mine looks like. So I'm going to be folding my paper on that line, on that rule line. So this is what it looks like as I'm folding it. Now the paper there isn't enough. I'm going to be adding fresh pattern paper there so we can draw in the lapel collar design. I really do not want to expose my cleavage. That is why I did not deepen my lapel collar. I made it kind of high. So we're going in now to draw the lapel collar. Can you see where I started ruling my line from? Look at the neckline. Now you can see where I started ruling my line from. So you want to do the same exact thing. In fact, there are some things here that are not optional. You have to just do it that way. Where I started ruling my line from in this lapel is not optional. You want to do it this exact way. Now from that point, I'm going to be marking 3 inches. If you want a bold lapel, 3 inches is okay. If you want something smaller, 2 inches, 1.5. I don't know if 1.5 is going to be too small. Then I'm connecting that line to where my lapel is going to stop, like this. And now you want to trace that on this part of the paper. I'm going to have to trace it. Can you see what it looks like? I'm going to have to trace it and then I will cut it out because you're going to be needing that part. In fact, it's actually the part you have to be cutting out on your fabric. So can you see that? I'm just here trying it out to see what it's going to look like. So this is what it actually looks like. I'll go ahead to cut the remaining excess papers that we do not need. And at the end, this is what we have. Okay. So the next thing we are going to do on this lapel is to get the midpoint of our shoulder, which I got here. Just get the midpoint of your shoulder. Okay. That was what I did there. So we're going to be connecting it to get our shoulder princess dart. I connected it to my bust point. All right. So I'm going to be cutting open my side bust dart. Remember, when you want to get a princess dart, you have to combine 2 darts. So I'm going to be closing up my side bust dart. But before I continue, I felt like that midpoint of the shoulder was too close to the neck. So I had to reduce it by 1 inch. So it's kind of close to the shoulder or close to the armhole. Then by the time I reduced it, I redrew that line to meet the bust point like so. So remember, we went away 1 inch from the center of the shoulder. Then I went ahead to cut open my side bust dart. Then of course cut this other line. Transferred the dart of the side bust dart to that point. Then I'll tape down my side bust dart. I'll close it up, sorry. My side bust dart, I'm going to close it up. So having done that, we'll cut open the waist dart. Of course, this part is where we're going to be sewing in this ruffled stuff at the sleeve. It's this part that we're going to be sewing it into. Okay. So this is what it looks like. This is what the front short pattern looks like. Okay. The short pattern of the front, this is what it looks like. So we'll head over to the long part, the long pattern, the long front pattern. Okay, so I wrote long. Now we're going to be adding the same 1 inch for the button or the buttonhole of the front. I've added it already, you guys. So the next thing I did was to add fresh pattern paper at this top. The top part of this pattern, I added fresh pattern paper to it. And I taped it down with my cello tape. So of course, like we did to the short pattern, we're going to also be extending this part or be adding 1 inch towards the neckline. And then I had to use my short front pattern to check the length I used for the lapel, or where the lapel stopped. Okay, so I just marked that point and I took the pattern away. Of course, I'm going to be connecting it, the 1 inch, to that point where the lapel stopped. I used that one to check this one so that everything is in alignment. So one is not longer than the other, or one is not shorter than the other, something like that. Of course, we'll be adding fresh pattern paper to this side to accommodate the lapel for that side. I had to tape it down also. So I folded that row line. Okay, folded the row line, and of course I'll go ahead to draw in the lapel design. I'll be using the short pattern to draw in the lapel so that the lapels are exact shape. Okay, so that the lapels come out as exact shape. Be mindful of how you place this. Can you see how I placed mine? So be mindful of how you place it. Then I went ahead to draw it out like so. We're going to be tracing it on this other part of the paper. We'll trace it out on the other part of the paper. So I traced it out, okay, then I cut it out also. So putting both of them together to check what I am going to have, this is what it looks like. And it was okay by me. I think it's okay. So this is what it looks like, and at this point I felt like, it's okay. So I had to set the short one also apart so I can continue working on the long one. Now this is my waistline. Of course, the button is going to be sitting here. The other one, of course, sits somewhere around here. At this point, I felt I was going to be having 2 buttons, but no, it's actually 3 because my lapel is not deep like the one I'm recreating. So I went ahead to cut up until the waistline. Like I said, you can do what is optional for you here. You can decide to follow my exact pattern. Remember, this is pattern drafting. Just play around with it, but do not neglect the important details that you have to stick to. So I'm marking the midpoint of my shoulder. Remember, we added extra 1 inch to it, but I'm using this now to true it to make sure that they are both the same thing. Okay, to make sure that they are both the same thing. So I used this part to true it and I marked it out. So I'm going to be using my ruler to connect that point to the bust point with a straight line. So at this point, this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead and cut open my side bust, that just the exact weight we did for the short one. We are trying to create a shoulder princess that. And then of course I'll go ahead and tape it down. You want to be very careful while doing this. Do not overlap it. Just make sure they are meeting. Do not overlap it. And this is what it looks like. I added fresh pattern paper to this side, to the long side, please. I taped it down. Okay, I added fresh pattern paper to this part of the long pattern and I taped it down. Now I'm going to be measuring 3 inches. I want to add sort of an exaggerate the side towards the hip region. That is what I'm trying to do now. And I had to join it together with a curve like so. This is what it looks like. I used 2.5 inches or 3 inches. You can use 3 inches. So I'm going ahead now to cut it out. So I'm also going to be marking 1.5 inches at this point. Remember, we did the same thing for the short one. And having done that, I'm bringing in the short one to check it out. Like I said, this is pattern drafting. You have to be checking from time to time to make sure that your designs are not looking awkward. Even if it's not perfect, like let it be close to, but it shouldn't be looking awkward. So I went ahead to true it to see what it's going to look like. And I gave the front that slant curve that went all the way from the waistline. Then at this point, I think I'm happy with what I have. So I decided to cut out the excess part of the pattern that I do not need. I'm trying to be very careful with this because I don't want to rip the paper and maybe something will get lost and I'll start looking for it and all that. And also, I don't want to cut where I'm not supposed to cut. So I'm trying to be careful while doing the whole cutting stuff. So like I said, from time to time, you keep truing it, you keep checking it to see what your design looks like. Whatever the design is going to look like, trust me, it will come out on the paper first. You're going to be seeing it on your paper first, like this is what you're going to have. So at this point, I was kind of okay with what I have. So I decided to continue. Now I'm cutting out the waist dart to complete our princess, shoulder princess dart. So at this point, this is what the long front pattern looks like. Long front pattern. This is what it looks like. So we head over to the back, which is kind of easier than the front. This is the back in full. We also have long and we also have short. Remember, the short part of the front will align with the short side of the back, while the long side of the front will align with the long side of the back, especially at the side. So when you're stitching it, one side is not longer than the other, okay? So we'll have short and long, sorry, for the back also. Now on the long side of the back, like we did to the front, I'm going to be adding fresh pattern paper so we can exaggerate the hip part of it. I added my fresh pattern paper. With my tape, I'm going to be taping it down. So the same measurement we used for the front, I'm going to be ruling in 3 inches or marking out 3 inches, sorry. Of course, from my waistline, we're going to be connecting it with a slight outward curve. We're going to be connecting with a slight outward curve all the way to the waistline and down to that hip line for the back. Same thing we did for the front also, for the long side. Do not forget, for the long side of the pattern. So I went ahead to cut out the excess, which we do not need. So at this point, this is what our back pattern is looking like for now. We're not sure yet. So now the next thing we are going to do is, I'm checking how many inches I used here. This is the short part of the front. I checked it. I think it should be around 2.5 inches, but at this point I forgot, so I had to check it. And then I imputed the same measurement here at the short side of the back. So we're going to be connecting that point. I had to true it. Okay, I also had to bring that back to make sure that the points align. So I'm going to be connecting that point to what's it called? To the short part, to the long part, sorry. I'm going to be connecting that point to the long part of the back. So I went ahead to start doing that. So we're going to use our scissors and cut out the parts that we do not need. At this point, this is what our back pattern is looking like. So the next thing we're going to do, of course, is to separate them from the center, long and short. We're going to be separating it from the center. So we're going to be working on the long one first, which is actually very simple. We're not doing too much. So for the shoulder princess dart, we're also going to be doing same thing we did to the front, midpoint plus 1 inch, midpoint of the shoulder plus 1 inch. And then we use our ruler to connect a straight line from that point to the chest, no, to the bust point line of the back. I also had to use this point or this very particular pattern of the front to check the long one, to check and to make sure that I'm having the same thing at the shoulder. Then I went ahead to connect it like so. Then with my scissors, I'm going ahead to separate it. We also need this shoulder princess dart at the back because this very ruffled effect at the sleeve or at the shoulder went into the back, as you can see from the beginning of the video, from the introduction of the video while I was showing you the design as I was wearing it. You can see that that ruffled effect at the shoulder also went into the back. So we need to do this to accommodate that ruffled effect at the back. So this is what the long back pattern looks like. I went ahead to label long so I do not mix things up. I set it aside. And for the short back pattern, it's also very simple. I also got the short pattern for the front, short front pattern, and the shoulder lines. I marked it to make sure that they are the same. Then I went ahead to cut out this stuff like so. So this is what it looks like, short back, and that's all. Okay, for the sleeve, this thing I did here is actually wrong. Now the long part is the shoulder, and the other part is, this part now is the shoulder measurement. As you can see, is around 9 inches or 9.5, let's say 9 inches. And the other part is the inseam or the side that will go into the bust region and all that. So half of the shoulder measurement is what I marked here. With my ruler, I will roll a straight line across like so. So I'm going to be connecting that point from that shoulder to this part. Then we'll go ahead to cut it out. Like I said, this part is the shoulder. This part is where we are going to be slashing and spreading to gather into the body, into the bodies. We're going to be sewing it into that shoulder princess dart. So I wrote slash and spread. Just know you're going to be slashing and spreading this pattern to get fullness so you can gather. Okay? And of course, you're cutting this part on fold. This is the shoulder part, so you're cutting it on fold. It's going to be standing, you're going to be cutting it on fold, and you need 2 pieces of this. For lining, you need 4 pieces of it. Okay, so let's head straight to the cutting. I went ahead to cut my patterns out on the fabric. Just a little process of it so you guys can see. I'm cutting out my pattern now on the fabric. If you love this series of recreating an AI design, you can leave a comment in the comment section. And is it actually a series? We can actually make it a series. So back to the business of the day. The first thing you do is to join the shoulder of the back and front together. Whether it is long or short, join the shoulder of the back and front together. For the armhole area, you also join the shoulder of the back and front together for the neckline part of it. I don't know if you get shoulder or front and back for the armhole separate. Join shoulder for front and back for the neckline area separate. Now you gather your ruffled effect and join it from the shoulder. Make sure you notch your shoulder point. Join it to the shoulder of the back and front of the armhole area and the back and front of the neckline part of it. Then of course you sew them together. Make sure you notch the shoulder and use your pin to hold it down. So after doing that, this is what the whole stuff looks like. I know that the sewing part of it isn't very detailed because I had to wear this dress to somewhere, so I was rushing to make the filming very fast. So this is what it looks like. So this is what it looks like after I joined everything. After I joined everything, I have some detailed tutorials for blazers, so you can check it out, and also for attaching a shirt collar, so you can check it out. Now you want to shape this by the side like so. Of course you have to do it because you'll be attaching a sleeve to it. Also went ahead to shape this also by the side. Okay, we're going to be shaping this also by the side, so you can attach your sleeve. And after that, this is what we have. Thanks for watching. Bye.